So I have this recording. Let me click and go back. I can select this by just left-clicking and dragging, and now I have this selected. Now that I have that selected, I can go into a new layer and make a mask. That's cool. And that does give me a shape. I can't see it yet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sample a green color and go to Edit Fill. Enter. Okay, there's my shape. There's an issue with using quick selection versus a pen. Vwhat's the difference between Illustrator and Photoshop? What type of graphics do they work with? Yes. So vectors allow for us to do one very important thing. We can scale those things and we don't lose any resolution. This thing, if I scale this thing up, Fuzz City, right? You can see the fuzz already starting to happen. Now, if I work in another way and I just use my pen tool and click around this, I can scale that thing up however I want. So there are two ways to do that. It really depends. If you know that your texture is always going to be at a certain res, this way you don't really need to work with. You can use the masks like Ryan just mentioned. So that's a good question, and yes, if you want to do it with the mask, I totally understand that. I'm just going to, look, that didn't take too long. But what I need to do now, I don't have this turned into a shape yet. I need to turn that into a shape by clicking this button right here. When I click that, now it's a shape, and it filled in a color. Okay, so now I have two different methods. This shape, if I use it in Control-T, scale, it's always going to be the same, which is actually really, really helpful, because if I wanted to make other leaves with this, I can make bigger ones, I can make smaller ones, and we're not going to lose any pixel data off of that. If we use rasterize, which is with the mask, you will lose that data. So there's yin and yang, there's pros and cons to both of these methodologies. However that works for you. For this one, that's fine. I'm going to use this mask for now, or this shape. And first thing I want to do, let's use the power of having reference. I'm going to move this over to my other screen. Okay. I know that there's depth on this leaf. That's the first thing I want to try and put into this. So to be able to put some depth on that leaf, I'm going to go into my effects. So if I go into effects and I go into, let's try bevel and emboss. Let's try an inner shadow. And by that, I clicked totally on the wrong one. There we go, inner shadow. Okay, you're probably thinking, but Josh, inner shadow, we want depth on it, and that may not really come across the same way. It will. We can change the way the blend mode works. We can do inner glow, which is similar to inner shadow. So either of these will work for this next technique. If I use inner glow, I'm going to change my glow to overlay, and I'm going to change the color to a yellowy green. Okay. What I'm doing now, I'm going to increase the size of it, and just by popping that up, you can see that gives me a little bit of a halo. Now, the compression that you're seeing on your screen, it's a little bit less than on mine, so if it's not noticeable, if I do this, you'll definitely see that happening now. Okay, so I have that happening. It's kind of nice. Let's try the inverse of that with inner shadow. Inner shadow works the same way, except that that noise isn't appearing. So if I change from multiply to overlay, I increase the size of that, you're not really seeing the noise. So I think that's a little bit more helpful to work this way. Now that I have that, I'm going to say okay. Now I need to start thinking about how I can paint this thing. So I'm going to say all this other stuff, I'll group it and hide it. Now with this, I'm going to make a new layer. How do I select this? If I want to make a mask of this, how do I select that using my mouse and keyboard commands? Hold down Alt. Okay. How about hold down Control and left click. It selects it, and then press the mask button. So again, Control left click will allow for me to have a mask selected or created when I press the button here. And then now I can make a new layer. And this new layer, since I still have that selection, I'll just apply that. This is a helpful way to be able to make masks for myself. And masks are really good because now I'm going to start painting. So my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in shadow. I'm analyzing how this looks. I'm kind of trying to think about what the most important part is. And I'm looking at this. This is a new growth. It's small. It's more green. It's more vibrant. So maybe that's not the one I want to start with, especially if I look at the outer edges of this. I probably want one with some more character to it. So if I look at my references again, and again, I want you guys to actually find references before you start to build this out. Let's say that those look new. Let's go with right here. I'm going to look at some of these, or even this one. Oh, that's the same one I found before. It's helpful. Okay, so this one. I see shadows. Where are the shadows happening? The middle. Okay. What else? What else could we say the shadows are occurring? Okay. Yeah. So the veins of the leaf. I'm no scientist, but that sounds sciencey, right? And if I look at that, you can see it kind of forking out like a tree. Always look at similar shapes you can relate to before you paint. Don't just start knocking out random stuff. Look at base shapes that you can find. You see the tree shape in there? Kind of fans outwards, and it goes to the edges from that. That's how we should work. So we should think about it that way. And again, we're stylizing this. We're hand painting this. This is how we want to work. I'm going to take my brush tool. So the B key. Let's go to the dry media brushes, and we'll try out Kyle's drawing box. This may not be the one I want. I'm going to increase the size, and I'm also going to take this green color. I like that I'm using green. I'm going to use multiply now. That means that anywhere I paint, it's going to burn in that color essentially when I use multiply, which is great. However, when I'm doing that right now, that's almost an immediate display of that color. I don't like that. So again, your brush, you have the ability to control that with your opacity and your flow. So now if I paint, that's slowly building up. Maybe that's a little too slow. And another huge problem right now is my Wacom tablet is mapping to both of my screens. If this is doing this, remember, you can just change that up and it'll make it so your life isn't so terrible when you're texturing. So I'm only laying out some base shapes for this for myself. And I'm okay with it getting sloppy because nature's not super correct on these things. And I have a lot of abilities to change this later on. So I'm only blocking out essentially the colors and the shadows of this. So if I ended up going too far in certain spots, I can go into my eraser tool. And I'm going to change my eraser. Do ultimate charcoal pencil. And let's drop my opacity this time again. This is sort of additive and subtractive painting, right? Oh, this one wanted to switch on me. So I'm going to go my general brushes, and I'm going to use a soft round instead. And I'm going to bring my opacity down. Some of these, remember, when we try to erase, it'll switch to a pen tool. I don't know why Photoshop supplied us with the most fanciest brushes for default, which makes learning harder. All right, I'm just erasing out some of the content on here. I'm increasing my opacity if I'm not pulling off paint fast enough here. And I'm just trying to get that semblance of veining. And I can switch between these two to do additive and subtractive techniques on this to get that look on here. Yep. So the B key is your brush tool, and E key is erase. Good. Okay, so that's starting to do some stuff for me. I need some highlights and I need to change some more details on it. I like to usually have multiple shadows, so I have one shadow that's kind of like the undertones, and then I have a harder shadow that holds some of my shape. So I'm gonna make a new layer. Again, Control, left click, mask, and now we'll call this Shadow 2. And this time I want a much more pinpoint accuracy brush, and I want to make sure, again, I'm in multiply. Notice if I didn't have multiply on, it's actually just putting that tone on there. With multiply, it's burning in that color. So now I can kind of get some more of these shapes on there. Doesn't have to be perfect yet. Again, we have two monitors for a reason. Use them. The monitors are so we can actually look at reference when we're working instead of just kind of winging it. So make sure you're using all the available tools for you in this lab. Okay, this takes time. I want to cover some other stuff, but you can see if I use the erase tool now on here, I can pull away some of that detail too. And that starts to build up the look of a leaf. It's not there yet, but it is starting to get there. Now I want to start to add some other stuff. So let's add some highlights. I'm going to add a new layer. Again, Control, left click to select that, and then mask it. And I'm going to hit the I key. Well, actually, let's just sample by going over here. I'm going to sample a yellow. So we don't need to use the eye, which is the eyedropper. We'll just go over in our color. If color is not open, you can always turn that on. Window, color. All right, and I'm going to start painting using overlay. And this can be messy. I'm going to get a big brush, and I'm going to turn my opacity way, way, way down. Bob Ross in it, really, and I'm talking to squirrels, just understanding who this plant is. You can see you're getting some texture build up on this. This is going to take time before it actually makes any sense, but you can see, do you see that texture on there? That's nice, and that's kind of what I'm going for on that. Now also, there's a little bit of purple in there, not a lot, but I'm going to go into shadow. I'm going to go make another one. Whoop. And I'm going to label that purple, but I'm going to spell it like a person should, okay, not pupil. Okay, now, B key, I'm going to go into like a purple color, and again, super fast. Increase my opacity up on that. Oh, I'm painting on my mask. I need to be over here. And I need to not have that happen. Okay. And okay, so we're going to sample purple. And just, oh, too small. So to go back, remember that's Control Z to undo. I'm going to knock back my opacity. I'm going to increase the size of this brush even more, and just one quick push on that. Okay, I can see it happening, but it's super light, so I'm going to increase that a little bit more. There we go. Okay, maybe that brush isn't the one you want. Experiment. That's why we have all these other things. Again, if you're just following along and doing the step-by-step, that's a Bob Rosser in their basement. That's not an art student. Make sure that you're experimenting and using your brain. See, if you follow along with that, please stop. No. We need to do very simple, quick passes to try and get some of these to work. So to build this up, starting to get there. My purple right now is above the veins, and you can see that it's washing that out. So if I drop that down by left-clicking and dragging, I can try to get that to knock back a little bit. Holy cow, are you guys seeing, we're almost there, guys. We're almost at crash phase. So, all right, let me see what we can accomplish before this hits the fan. So let's jump. So we're talking about texturing today. I want us to get reference, and I want us to get to creating the first tone of this. I'll be releasing more info as we go on this. I'm going to show you guys how we actually get these textures to our plant. So in Maya, here's Maya, and oh man, that looks really nice. A lot of the times you guys are uploading stuff, you're not thinking about the whole composition, which, you know, that's okay. This is fine to send to grandma. It's not as nice though. Such an easy way that we can make an object actually look a little bit nicer by creating a sphere and then expanding that outwards and then adding some color to it, which I'll show you guys that if you want to do it. It's not required for this part. All right, let's say all of this and that didn't exist. All right, what do I got to do to get this stuff to work? Well, if I have my textures, and I was using a stingray, but blend is totally an acceptable way to work with this as well. Hey now, cool Maya. Is it 4 o'clock? Yep. We're at the vet. Hope you guys got one last pet in on that, because it's done. It's okay. It's okay, guys. There's so many other pets that need adoption. There's 3D Studio Max. There's illustration. Okay, and look at this. It's back. Pet Cemetery. Okay, we got this thing back. All right, I'm going to make myself a plane. I'm going to scale this thing up. This is how we're going to make our pieces. And this is why it's called the billboard technique, because we are actually working with a flat piece of material to make our objects. Now, I know it's a texturing class, but I know you guys have taken Scott's class, you've taken mine, so you know how to be able to mess with this. It's very easy modeling. What we're going to do is add. I know you know. Where are you? This doesn't bode well. Let's reset. That's never a good sign right now if Maya wants to do that. Hold on. We're almost there.